Okay, we are back with another episode of Big Thoughts Podcast. You're with your host Gordon.
Yes, and Tomi and Gordon.
Yes, and today's episode we're just going to explore a bit more about my journey as co-founder of Believe in Greatness. Then we'll see where the conversation takes us. Do you want to start with any questions you want to ask me?
Yeah, man, got a few questions for you in the hot seat.
I'm in the hot seat. The pressure's on. My heart's now racing.
Yeah, it's all good. Co-founder of Believe in Greatness, Gordon. Want the people to get to know you. And the first question I've got for you today is, what is your why? What drives you to do what you do?
I think when I first started, it was to be the best version of myself. And that came through a frustration of me having these grand ideas. And then by the end of the year, I did absolutely nothing. And then when I started my public speaking journey and running 3-4 workshops every single week, I realized that the biggest weakness and stumbling block, which is stopping individuals from reaching their goals, is their mindset. And just by being that person, and you mentioned this, being that person that says, I believe in you, makes a big difference. And the fact that people can go through 10, 15 years of heartache, falling short of their goals, disappointment, and in the space of one session, they have a completely different perspective on life. That is my why. To have an impact, to instill people with the confidence they didn't think they had. And if they can reach out to me 3 months later and say, Gordon, I absolutely love public speaking. I got a promotion. I've started my business. I'm successful. Wow, I played a part in your story. And that means a lot.
Wow, that's really deep. And congratulations, I must say. You've co-founded an amazing organization that I'm proud to be a part of.
Yes.
So amazing stuff. And what you touched on there was really deep. And something that really stood out to me is that the old version of yourself had ideas, but they weren't materializing. Yeah. I think that's a problem that a lot of people face, because it's one thing to visualize, it's another to execute. So talk to me a bit more about that and how you overcame it, and what it means to you to now be someone who takes action towards achieving your dreams.
There are billions of people on this earth, and I'm sure every single one of them has goals. What sets them apart? There are 2 types of people in this world. There are thinkers and doers. For the first 23 years of my life, I was a thinker. If my friends asked me, okay, what's your aspirations? What are you trying to do with your career? I said the most grand things. I'm going to go into investment banking. I'm going to make millions. But if you was then to ask me, how will you get there? I had no idea. And it was only from a position of pain. And this was in the year 2019. I just graduated. I did a master's. I'm very smart, by the way. And I went a period of 12 months not working. And it was from a position of pain I realized, okay, I actually need a plan. I was forced to have a plan.
Yeah.
The goal was airy now because I didn't have a job. There was the lack of certainty. And it was at that point I realized the importance of those daily routines, the habits, the steps that need to be taken. And by every single day approaching it with the mindset of, let me try and improve, that's when I changed my outcomes. Whereas in the past, because I thought, and I think it was due to my own sort of inexperience and arrogance to an extent, I believed I had the luxury of time. There was no urgency to get there. It was in the distant future. And because of that, there was nothing I had to do today. But from that position of pain, I quickly realized with a lot of my friends reaching their goals and progressing, time was not on my side.
Yep.
And because of that, I had to face myself, hold myself accountable and think about, all right, what am I going to do now? And that's when I started to build systems.
Wow. That's deep. And what you touched on actually reminded me of a quote, which is, information without implementation leads to irritation. And a lot of people feel stuck and are frustrated. They're angry even at themselves because they haven't taken action on the things that they want to do. So what would your encouragement be through your own personal journey to people who are stuck right now in that place where they've got these ideas, these ambitions, but they're still not where they want to be?
The first question that you need to ask yourself is, am I doing enough? If you feel that you're setting yourself the goals, you're doing a lot of planning, but you're not actually taking the right actions, then that is something you need to address. If you believe you lack the information, then it's now about putting yourself in an environment which will help you to understand what you need to do going forward. And I think it's really beneficial to be around people that are ahead of you, because that wealth of knowledge and experience is invaluable. At the start of my journey, to speak with people that were successful in this space and in different industries, to learn from their mistakes, it helped me to paint a picture of that roadmap to the goal that I eventually wanted to get to. But without having access to that knowledge and experience, I didn't know what that first step looked like. And I think that is something that is crucial.
Wow. So what you're saying is there's a real need to surround yourself with people who've gone further down the line than you.
100%, because there will be a sense of discomfort that comes from it, because there is that realization that, you know what, they're doing much better than me in life. But I think that helps you to face your own insecurities, because it helps you to realize that, you know what, I should be doing more. If you're in a friendship group where you're doing better than everyone, or you're not having conversations that are conducive for you to actually improve, that environment is not going to help you in the long term. And if you're spending 100% of your time in that environment engaging with those people, not saying that's a bad thing, but maybe something for you to consider is allocating at least 40% of your time with people that are high achievers that you can learn from, because that can only benefit you. One thing that really drives me is that I don't want to live a life of regret. If I was to fast forward to the year 2050, I will be past 47 years old. And if at that point I say to my children, to my friends, I wish I did more, I wish I pursued that idea that I had, I'll be very disappointed. I've always said that for me, and I think this links to the question you asked, there needs to come that sense of acceptance with your current reality, because you don't put pressure on yourself and you understand I will get there eventually. But that will only happen if you create that bias to action and you constantly think about what you can do better. And when I go to the year 2050, even if believing greatness is not synonymous with confidence and we haven't coached millions of people, at the very least I can say at that point I did everything I possibly could, and I won't live a life of regret. And that's enough for me.
Wow. It's amazing. You've touched on your why, what inspires you to do what you do, how you've transitioned from a thinker to a doer. And it's really inspiring and encouraging to me and hopefully to the listeners as well.
Yeah, and I think one thing I want to say is that, and you probably realized this when you came to our first networking event in April 2023, and then fast forward to today and you're a TEDx public speaking coach, you don't need to have it all planned out when you start off. We're in the process of writing a book, by the way. Don't worry, you can pre-order it soon. JP Morgan started as a water company. Amazon started as a book company. Believe in Greatness started as a athletics club. When you're starting off, you're not necessarily going to know what that end point looks like, but every single day having that sense of purpose, just do the right things. And then when you put yourself in environments where you have access to new information, that helps you to understand if what you're doing is actually going to allow you to be successful, and if not, you pivot and then you explore other avenues. And irrespective of your age, if you're 18 to 21 or 40 plus, it's never too late. Just be intentional. Just think about how you can make that 1% improvement.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think what you touched on there is really deep. A lot of people doing certain things now wouldn't have even believed they'd be doing it 5-6 years ago or whatever. But by consciously putting one foot ahead of the other, things will align and all things will work together for your good, as long as you're brave enough to put yourself in uncomfortable situations and take those risks and leaps.
Take those risks. And when you see an opportunity, just go for it. Because I remember this was at a point when I used to write my goals. I don't really write goals anymore, but this was December 2020 or 2021. My goal for the new year was to become a speaker. And I think this stemmed from, one, having this innate belief that I could provide value to other people. And at the same time, Fred was going into schools and he was speaking, doing motivational, inspirational speech. And I thought, that is cool. And something clicked and I thought, yeah, I want to do something like that, but I'm not sure how it would work. And then April of the following year, Fred, who was working for a different organization, reached out to me and he said, Gordon, there's this opportunity to do public speaking coaching. In terms of the money, it's commission. You might earn a decent amount some months and other months you won't earn much. But they're desperate for coaches. Are you up for it? I asked him, how's that experience been for you so far? He said, it's been really good, insightful, and I'm learning a lot. And for me at that time, there was a shift in my mindset because before, I was primarily driven by monetary gain. How much money can I earn? It's just about acquiring and taking from others. But at that point, because that never worked for me and I lived an unfulfilled life, I thought to myself, it's about providing value to others and skills acquisition.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know where it's going to take me, but everything I've done to this date hasn't worked. Let me just try it out.
Yeah.
And when I first started as a public speaking coach, I suffered from imposter syndrome. It was uncomfortable. I was going into spaces, coaching people that were 30 plus, they're wearing suits, ties. I was going there in jeans and a jumper with 6 weeks of experience, very high level feedback from some of the coaches. I didn't know anything. And I never felt like I belonged. And it was just down to the inexperience which made me feel that way. And it was amazing when I first started because I would run some classes, they were terrible. I actually remember a specific class. I ran the class, terrible. There was a guy in the front, straight faced the entire time, screwing me. And I was thinking, oh, bro, man, you're putting me off. Every time I looked at him, my mind went blank. I was thinking, oh, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And then at the end, he just walked up to me with a straight face. And he said, Gordon, that was brilliant. I learned a lot. I was thinking to myself, are you kidding me? You could have at least smiled halfway through once. I was speaking for 90 minutes once. This guy had a straight face the whole time.
Yeah.
And it was at that point I realized, even though I wasn't that far into my journey, there was people behind me that could learn from my experience and what I did know. Even though it was little at the time, people benefited from it. Yeah. And that was the point I realized in terms of my relationship with other people and navigating through life in general, it's now about providing value to others, because to see people with a smile on their face. And for that moment in time, that renewed belief and thinking, oh, you've helped me. I know exactly what I want to do. Yeah. That is amazing. But then The reason why I say that is because when I first started, I didn't know where I was going with this. I was spending a lot of time. I was going to work, finishing at 5, then going to run workshops at 6:30, getting home like 10 p.m., spending a lot of money on travel. I didn't have money in my account because this job wasn't paying me that much. I was struggling mentally, financially. I was in not a good place, but I knew this will benefit me in some point. How? I wasn't sure. But because I had the system in place, it allowed me to improve in a short space of time. Oh. And for people that were outside of this, they probably would have thought to themselves, how much are you earning? Maybe £50 a month. Why are you still doing it? But for me, it meant a lot more than that. Because everything I'd done up until that point didn't work. I was not going to make the same mistake again. And because I'm not getting anything out of it straight away, I'm going to give up. Practice delayed gratification.
Yeah.
Just keep pushing through. And eventually I saw a bit of light.
Wow. That's amazing how you change your perspective from initially being a taker, or how much am I going to get? What's it going to bring me? What's it going to add to me? But quite interestingly, the things you were always after have now become a byproduct of you changing your perspective and being a giver, someone who's impacting lives, making a lasting difference in those that you come across. It's really interesting that way, because it's actually something that you wouldn't have thought about in the older version of yourself. Yeah.
I think because of us being brought up in Western society, how we're conditioned, you go to secondary school, go through the whole educational system. Your main goal is to have a career and make significant amount of money, get a mortgage, support a family, etc. And that's the only thing really in your mind. Anything short of that is seen as failure, but there's a grey area. And we need to understand you're not going to get there overnight. And for me, as I mentioned, rather than making the same mistakes, let me try something different. And I live a more fulfilled life now. I'm happy. I can't remember the last time I complained. I'm happy for other people. When Fred sent me, because just for a bit of context, Tomi was coaching for a TEDx event. When Fred sent it to me, I was just happy. I was like, Tomi, man, I'm sure he's gassed. Like, I've been able to contribute in some way, 10, 15%. That is amazing. The fact that you're now in a position to actually say, I'm a TEDx public speaking coach. If you're talking to other people about me, I'm hopeful that you'll say good things. Yeah. And for anyone else that I've coached, it's the same thing. Gordon, you've helped me. And that's what it's all about, providing others with value. Just going back to my why, this is the reason I do this. Even if I'm tired sometimes and my mind's in the wrong place, I know by the end of this workshop, I'm going to be in the best mood because I'm going to meet new people, have great conversations, and at least one person in that room, their life will change for the better as a result of coming to this class. I will sow a seed. It might not grow today, but at some point it will click.
Absolutely.
And that's all that matters.
Absolutely. Wow. The story you touched on there about the guy with the straight face, that was funny, by the way, that he actually ended up taking something away from it.
Exactly.
And what you've touched on a few times now is impacting lives, making a difference, which actually leads quite nicely onto my next question, which is, in this journey with Believing Greatness, being a co-founder, being a public speaking coach, what's one or possibly two moments that you would say have been your proudest so far?
My proudest moments, I think the first thing I'm going to say is a accumulation of a number of different activities. But just to put into context, we ran our first networking event where we met Tomi, April 2023. We ran our first course, July 2023, and we had about 5 people. In between that time, we ran close to 15 weekly workshops. On average, we had 2 people each event. and both me and Fred were going. Just imagine for us, we would promote the events, maybe 10 to 15 people would sign up. On the day, me and Fred are contributing to the audience because there might be 1 or 2 people there. And we stuck at it. I remember someone that attended one of our first workshops, he's now become a close friend, called Jay. And he said to us, this is why you guys just stood out to me. There's something wrong with you. He came to our workshop. No word of a lie, there was 2 people, including him. Me and Fred split it. So we spoke 45 minutes each, and we were putting in effort. You would think he was at a TEDx event, and there was 2 people. Bro.
Same energy.
When we first got there, we were thinking, oh my God. Let's say we were starting at 2 p.m. We arrived around 1:30. 1:50, nobody's in the room. 2 o'clock, first person comes in. 2:15, the second person's come in. I look over to Fred and I said, all right, let's do it. He asked, should we record it? I said, of course not. There's only 2 people here. Why are we recording? And the level of effort we put in, because for us, at the end of that workshop, we had this, and I would like to touch on it. We were delusional, and we still are. We said to ourselves, this is going to form part of our story. When we write a book, when we're on the biggest stages in the world, we can touch on this and have a laugh. In that moment, there was a sense of frustration, but I absolutely cherish those moments because I was with a close friend. We started this business together. We know what we're doing this for, and this is a part of it.
Yeah.
And we would run these workshops every single week, 1 or 2 people. And honestly, sometimes I'll be in my room thinking to myself, am I a bit crazy? I can't tell anyone this because they would think I've lost my mind. They would think I lost my mind.
Yeah,
like you're traveling like an hour, you're running workshops for 2 people. What are you doing?
You got bills to pay.
Yeah, you got bills to wake up. Like, I honestly think that's why for me as well.
Yeah.
I believe, yeah, that's funny by the way. I believe you should protect your goals sometimes because people project. They'll try to tell you what is or isn't realistic. When I started my journey and I was saying, oh, this is what I want to do. I remember I told my ex-girlfriend at the time and she said to me, that's not realistic. And it was then I realized, you know what, I'm not telling anyone again. I need to keep this safe because I love being in my let's say space of delusion where I think anything is possible.
Yes.
Because I believe your mindset makes a big difference.
Absolutely.
Whatever you look for, you see. You shape your reality. And if I was at the start of my journey thinking, oh, I can't do this, there is no way I would be here 2 and a bit years later. I constantly told myself, if it was true or false, this is a part of my journey.
Yeah.
I am an amazing public speaking coach.
Come on.
Gordon, keep at it. You will get there.
Yes, sir.
It was a long journey, but I did eventually.
Wow. That's inspirational, man. Whatever you look for, you see. And your mentality is your reality. I absolutely believe that you have to protect your dreams. And you've already encouraged me with that. And anyone listening, if you've got a dream, hold on to it. Be careful who you share them with. Some people out of fear may say to you, nah, that's not possible. It might not work, from a loving place. Some people try to dim your light because they don't want you to get there. But ultimately, you have to block out the noise and just keep going.
Block out the noise and keep going. There's a term that I've coined. I don't think it's available anywhere else. And that is the illusion of progress. What I mean by this is, and we do all of the time, like you're having conversation with your friends, your cousins, whatever the case may be, and you will tell them, next year, this is what I want to achieve. Or you go to your first public speaking workshop. You go to a buy to let event, and you get all of this information and you feel as if you've achieved something. But what you don't realize is that that is the first step of a million. And rather than talking about all of the things you want to achieve and what you've done, etc. Just go out there and do it.
Yeah.
And that's why I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I don't really write down my personal goals anymore, because I grew fed up of writing down goals and I would meet 25% of them.
Yeah.
Instead, and maybe there's a better way I could approach it. I'm sure people in the comments will provide a few recommendations. But for me now, I just approach each day at a time. Today, what am I going to do? And I create a bias to action. As soon as something comes in my mind, I do it. It doesn't matter what time it is. If something comes in my mind, okay, I want to do this for the business, do some research, I would just do it there and then, because I know myself. And I think, especially on this journey of self-improvement, learn yourself better, know your tendencies, and think about how you can address it. And for me, because I was someone that would procrastinate, I would overthink, as soon as something comes in my mind, now I just do it to break that cycle.
Amazing. I think something that's definitely worth doing, just to add to what you said, is write down some of your limiting beliefs. Okay.
Touch on that.
It could be some habits. I'm a procrastinator. I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think I'm smart enough. Then try and find out what's led to that thinking process. Get into the root of the problem, because what you're explaining there is know yourself. You know yourself, and the more you go on this journey of self-discovery and introspection, the more likely you are to transcend to greater heights, overcoming these limiting beliefs and then replacing them with empowering ones. But it can be an ugly journey to look within, look deeper.
Yeah, that's a deep point you've mentioned, and something that's come into my mind. I went to a networking event maybe 3 months ago. I didn't plan to stay, but I thought, you know what? Let me just stay and listen to the speakers. And there was one person that was on the stage, and he mentioned the genesis of your identity. And that's something I really thought about, because with your limiting beliefs, the anxiety, your insecurities, that is learned behavior. You wasn't born that way. And when I thought about my journey and some of the limiting beliefs I had as well, I had low self-esteem. I always tried to manage my own expectations, be realistic. Where did that stem from? And a lot of the time is from your childhood. Maybe it is what your parents or members of your family said to you about yourself. Because it's through those early childhood experiences that you shape your identity. And just linking it to public speaking and confidence, when I do coaching, a lot of the time they say to me, when I really think about it, I remember a time, this is a specific example. There was a lady we just coached in September, and I told her about the genesis of your identity. And then she really thought about it, and she said when she was growing up in Jamaica, in the class, she was around 6 to 8 years old. She raised her hand because she wanted to say something to the teacher and ask a question. And the teacher said, not right now, I'm talking. And she said, no, please, I just want to ask a question. The teacher then told her, stand up, stand on the chair, and I would like you to share with everyone why you're stupid. And at that time, all of the kids started laughing at her. She felt embarrassed. She went home, and now, growing up, she thought it was a bad thing to speak up, to be outspoken. Progressing into a career, she would just fade into the shadows, wouldn't say anything, lacked that confidence. And she used to be very vocal when she was a child. Her parents used to tell her, and then something changed, and it didn't even click for them. And it was only when we had that conversation, she realized, you know what, that is something that has affected me. And this is why when you have experiences like the one I just shared, as an adult, able to apply logic, you need to challenge the interpretations you have of that situation. Because the way I see it, that teacher didn't know any better. Can't excuse their behavior. Those children were ignorant. They're children. They're going to follow.
course.
They're just going to laugh, but they won't put much thought into it. And you shouldn't see that experience as a reason why you shouldn't speak up.
Wow.
Because you should. You should. And for all of us, sometimes we need to look within and understand the reasons we are wired this way and then address it.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. We've touched on a lot of deep stuff, things that could actually be episodes in itself. Crazy. And I love the vulnerability that lady showed and that you also have showed, talking about how you were delusional, how your ex-girlfriend didn't believe in you. Can you just touch on what some of your biggest difficulties have been as well, just in addition to what you said about not making money at the start, it being a game of delayed gratification, but what else would you say has been a difficult or one of the most difficult parts of being a co-founder?
I think linked to the delayed gratification is not getting enough evidence when starting off that you're doing the right things. And this even makes any sense, because without that evidence, it's difficult to have confidence in what you're doing. And for the first 6 to 8 months, it just wasn't there. I just had to be delusional and make things up in my own mind. And that made it very difficult to continue. I think the second thing is consistency. I remember I was watching the Michael Jordan documentary on Netflix.
Sick.
And they were asking him, why did you go hard every single game? And just paraphrasing here, but he said, there will be someone in that audience that is seeing me for the first time. And if I have a terrible game, what are they going to think about me? And because of that, I understand that every single time I'm on the court, this is an opportunity for me to excel and to give them a show. And for me, it is no different. As I've said before, sometimes I would go to and do workshops and not be in the best mood, be tired, but there is the majority of the audience that are seeing me for the first time, and what are they going to think if I have an off day? And that's why I have to put my best foot forward, because being consistent is crucial, but it's difficult as well. Last year, I suffered from burnout because I was putting too much pressure on myself. I was constantly thinking about the future, which hasn't happened yet. And this year, I've done more to be present, spending time with my family, my friends, checking in with people to see how they are, because as much as I'm obsessed with being successful and believing greatness as big as it can be, what's happening right now is also very important.
100%.
And I don't want to miss out on that. And that's crucial, being as present as possible, enjoying my life and showing the people around me that they do care. But when you have goals and you put pressure on yourself, it's difficult for you to do that. And you hope that they understand, but sometimes they don't. The last thing I would say, which has been difficult, is staying motivated, I would say. But then at the same time, I've realized that I won't always be motivated. I won't always feel my best, feel good, but I just have to keep doing the right things. But having that motivation and enthusiasm is difficult. It's a long game. I'm still quite young. I'm looking to do this for the next 20, 30 years.
Longevity.
Exactly. It's important I have the same enthusiasm, because that's what sets us apart.
Yeah.
That when we're speaking with people, they just think, wow.
Yeah.
I just gravitate towards you. And yeah, I just want to keep that enthusiasm.
Amazing. You've gone into a lot of deep stuff. The audience and myself have gotten to know you a lot better. And just one last question we've got for you is, if you could tell that younger Gordon who was stuck, who felt like time was just passing him by, his peers were achieving and he was getting left behind, what would be your message to him?
I would say to him that any idea that you have, it's not as difficult as you think. Just go out there and do it. If it's starting your business, if it's going to a networking event, learning how to swim, which I still can't do, by the way. I can't swim. I need to learn. Just go out there and do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We overcomplicate things in our mind too much, and in the day that we're now living in this age, things are easily accessible through the power of TikTok, Instagram, Eventbrite. You can connect with some amazing people that can open up your mind to different things. You can join communities. There's a lot you can do, but just do it now. And don't think that you have the luxury of time, because it will go very quickly. I still remember when I was 16 years old in year 11 thinking, oh, I've got all the time in the world. What's your goals? It doesn't matter. And then before I knew it, 10 plus years have passed. And don't think time's on your side. Be obsessed with it just every single day. Just go out there and do it. Don't care what anyone else thinks. They don't care as much as you think they do.
Wow. Amazing. Great message. Really inspiring. Gordon, thank you so much, bro.
Yes. I hope people have had the opportunity to learn a bit more about my journey, the man behind the mask, behind the business, and can resonate with my story as well. And it's been brilliant to speak with you as well, Tomi.
Yeah, come on, man. It's always a pleasure.
And that brings another episode of the Big Sport podcast to a close.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with all of your friends and family members.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure we're consistent with the episodes. Thank you.
Stay tuned.